Hello and welcome to Armchair Safari, the daily video where I try to find a cool design online and we try to learn from it. Today we're learning from Tommy Han. Tommy's a designer who's doing some really interesting stuff. He's also a user researcher, which is why I think he's been doing this. So what he's been doing here is basically he's calling it a depth of field or yeah, depth of field effect for graphs. So look at this. So as you zoom into a note, everything else falls away. So if you're focusing on something, you can't read the other notes. And if you zoom out, so you unfocus on something, the all of the other notes grow. This is very similar to what a camera does. This is also extremely similar to what your mind is doing constantly as you're focusing or refocusing your attention. So I thought this was a really interesting concept to have a look at. It's also quite beautiful. Like I'm not sure how useful it is in this format, but it is very, very interesting. There's another example here where it zooms out, and you just see less and less and less. And then you can zoom in, but if you're not focusing on something specifically, it just becomes overbearing. Like it's just too powerful. And like this is a design exploration, so I'm not going to go through this as if it's a final design anything, but we're still going to pick it apart and see what we can learn. So how I do this is I try to go through things in 3 steps. So number one, what is bad about this? No, what is good about this? We always start with the good. What is good about this? What can we learn? What can we take away to our own design? Number two, what is bad about this? What should we avoid in our design? And number three, does this work for the end user? Now, number three is the most important, but since this is a design exploration, I don't think it's necessary to talk about that because it's not supposed to be used by the end user. This is just exploring a concept of something that you could build as a feature. All right, so what is good about this? Well, let's just go through the general UI of it first and then look at the primary feature. So in general, the zoom bar is extremely clear and very simple to use. It's a very nice metaphor for what you're doing because the zooming aspect of like zooming boxes on a grid does not actually make a lot of sense because it's not really a 3D effect. You're not really zooming closer to something. It's not really a 2D effect. You're not like zooming something that is asymmetric over the screen. So it's a strange UI thing, but the zoom bar I think kind of makes that clear. The zoom bar is also the clearest element on the screen with a red indicator, making sure that you think this is the primary thing to navigate with. It's also sort of out of the way, so it's not the primary thing to read. It's just a very important element that you can just navigate with. Love that. The background is a dot grid, making it very easy to see that this is going to be some sort of canvas that you're looking at. So these things are related to each other in some sort of space. Not sure if that helps in this case, because it doesn't actually look like, I think things do align to the grid, but it doesn't look like the content aligns to the grid. So I'm not sure how useful it is, but yeah, it's a nice design detail. Not sure if it's useful or not. It looks nice, but doesn't do anything. Yeah, and the boxes have this interesting 3D effect or 2.5D effect with drop shadows and convexity as a gradient on top of it. And the lines just look like very basic 2D lines. Basic. I mean, they look great, but this is the React Flow, I think, or React Graph library, and it is the basic choice for that library. So anyway, that's the good. Really, actually, I'm going to come back to the good for the primary feature. So the bad about this is that the skeuomorphism that's going on the screen actually makes absolutely no sense, and it is a little bit, it's almost a little bit too powerful. So I keep looking at the bounciness and the drop shadow and everything as if it's supposed to be a part of the navigation, and it isn't. So in this case, I think the graphics here are more of a distraction than a help for the user. It doesn't give you any sort of connotations to what this should be doing. It just gives you like a visual effect that sort of gets in the way a little bit for what's actually happening. So I don't think that's helping much. Other than that, I mean, the text is too small for the screen, but it's a design exploration. I'm sure this is just an example, and I'm pretty sure you could just zoom in. What else? Well, there is no visual hierarchy between the nodes, but that is, of course, on purpose, since that's exactly what we're actually looking at here. Select color is a bit strange compared to everything else. It doesn't look like it's the same, like it's a similar color or balanced color to the red in the zoom bar. So it's actually a bit weird. All right, but these are nitpicky details because we're sort of missing the elephant in the room. So let's step into the elephant. Let's look at the primary feature. How does this work? All right, so what's good about this? This is the best use of attention and like using attention for navigation that I've seen in a note-taking app. It is quite excellent, more similar to what you would see like in a very high density video game than in a note-taking app. So it's a very, very cool concept, very cool idea. It's an aperture for the mind, which is a really cool concept for what we're doing here. We're navigating a graph of notes. What's bad about this? Well, I guess text and apertures make this kind of strange, right? Because a text is generally not something that you focus on in this sense. So there are definitely some people who skim texts and can get some stuff from that. And if you're a classically trained journalist, a print journalist, there was a technique where you had the reverse pyramid. So you had the most densest information at the top, and then as you went, it was less and less dense information so that the editor can remove the bottom of it if they needed to save space. This has sort of disappeared in the last 20 years, and nobody really writes like this anymore, as far as I know. And I don't think most texts are adapted to it. AI, I guess, could help out with this, but in general, I don't think this works. It's a really cool idea, but shortening a text into something smaller is actually a tremendous amount of work because putting less words on something and still being as descriptive is incredibly taxing on the hand of the writer. So not sure if this would actually work. On the other hand, like I would love to have this with my own notes just to kind of get a feel for it because I'm theorizing now, right? And theorization usually does not lead you to truth. It can help you sort of think clearer about things and think clearer about what you should test next, but it's never going to be as efficient as just testing it. So I don't know if this theory is correct or not, and just the general vibe of this feels like something that I would love to try out just to see more of it. To see like, does this work? Does this not work? Could I do this? Could I not do this? That said, like if this document also had additional media in it, so if I had images, if I had quotes, if I had headers in the document, this would make a hell of a lot more sense, right? So if the paragraph content, the lowest like information density content disappeared as I zoomed out, and I'm just left with the headers and images, I still have a very clear view of what this is, especially if I made it at some point. So yeah, there's a lot that could be done with this that just isn't in here because it's a design exploration. I think this is a super interesting use case. I think this is a super interesting design. I think there's a lot to learn from just playing around with this concept of like guiding the user's focus and like thinking about focus as something that really goes from wide to focus to from wide to narrow, and just the fact that you need to block other stuff out to be able to do this. So I love this design. I wish I could play around with it. I would love to see what Orion that is hinting about here is, what that is about. And yeah, super interesting concept. Love what you've done here, Tommy. Really cool. Thank you for sharing this so that we can learn from it. And I hope to see more of this. If you wanna see more cool canvas tools, I'm guessing Tommy's your guy. And yeah,